I'll try not
It's
to
not a
talk
problem.
loud to make up for it on my end. But
No,
yeah, it
you
seems to be
sound
good.
perfect. A lot of times
Yeah.
troubleshooting the podcast makes for a good entrance anyway. You know, people kind of rely on that. They want to know that we're checking our equipment and talking about this and working out
Sure.
all the kinks and taking care of our guests, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
You're
I think you're doing a great job. It's
you're
on
like
my
the
end this time.
yeah, you're the first guest in I don't know how many that like right off the bat we could both see and hear you.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a rarity. So
it has to do with the great place I'm getting to borrow here. My buddy Kyle and Candace, they let me use their internet and everything. So
okay.
Oh,
Perfect.
yeah. Where are you located?
Blanchard, Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah. What's that
Yeah,
close to? I don't know Oklahoma that well. Those
it's
western
it's
states, I know
southwest
the
of OKC.
highways. Okay. So that
Yeah.
would be, all right, I'm going to pull up my map. I want to get eyes on
Yeah,
where this
looking
is.
at
What
it
kind
on
of
a map
scenery
right
do you
It's
guys
just
have
outside
there?
Oklahoma
Flat?
City. It's not far from Oklahoma City. The stockyards, all that stuff. It's right down the road, really.
Yeah. Well,
Cool.
what's in Oklahoma? Why do you live there?
My wife and I, we moved down here last year, and we kind of took to just riding colts. I started colts for the public down here, riding, starting cow horses and the like, doing kind of the 2-year-old thing for the show world. So that kind of the opportunity to be in warmer weather was also a big draw. But
Yeah.
the work, the horses.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. Joe and I were just getting off of the, we were at the NFR last weekend, but we were talking about that on our way home, that it seems like Oklahoma is a pretty hot place for professional cowboys. And I don't know if that just be, it just seems like team ropers and rodeo guys and reining horses and, all kinds of performance seems like it's in Oklahoma. And
It's
what do you
here.
think it's the
I
weather?
tell you, it's everything. It's the weather. It's like-minded people. It's the I don't know, maybe a competitiveness. There's just kind of a very competitive kind of person down here, I find. But I'm sure the weather has the most to do with it. You can do a lot outside year round. It's really, really nice. We had a little rain today. It wasn't great, but it'll dry up in a day and ground won't freeze and you'll be back to riding.
Do you consider yourself a competitive person?
No, sir. I'm not a competitive person at all. I don't know. I never have been, but I like to compete. But it's different. I kind of like the camaraderie of
Sure.
the kind of things I compete in. It's different. I'm not really out to really kick anybody's butt or nothing. I mean, I want to win when I go enter, but it's not like it's a driving force for me. I don't have any competitive hobbies at all.
Gotcha.
I think people that know me would say the same thing. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not that way.
Yeah. But you find like you can get along in this competitive atmosphere you're describing.
Yeah. No, the people are good. There's different kinds of people in all this walks of life, I find, and there's different variants of competitiveness. I find, I grew up where I grew up. There was a lot of kind of a rodeo mentality, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I couldn't get along with that. But I will say it feels different with the horse show thing. It's not, I don't know, it's not as intense maybe, but it's just a different thought process. I don't know. It has to do with the education of the horses, the effort they put into that. Maybe that's larger focus, but I don't know. It's different.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, especially because, like Ben said, we're coming off of the NFR. So talk about more like about where you grew up and the rodeo mentality. you're thinking about? And
Well,
again, I know we're not trying to bash rodeo because we just went to the rodeo and had a blast. Like we love
right.
it.
No, I'm not bashing rodeo either. Hell, I
Yeah.
like it. I enjoy it. I rode broncs for a while. I roped a lot. I did all the things. Rode bulls. I did all the stupid stuff. It was a lot of fun. Where I grew up, I'm from Minnesota originally. There was just a lack of options in the colt cowboy kind of world, and I clung to what I could get a hold of, and that was people wanted to rodeo, and so I did that a little bit. My dad did it a little bit, and I just thought that was what you did, and I did it till I was young adult, but I just never could kind of get on the same wavelength. I'd look at those people and I'd be like, I'm not really like you guys. I'm a little different minded. I feel like, I don't know why, but I just didn't really mesh with them. But that's what got me started on kind of the whole, I always wanted to do the cowboy thing, and it was just a lack of some options. It's what I had, so that's what I did.
Sure. Yeah, there is, from the limited amount I've been exposed to the whole rodeo deal, it is, it's probably more akin to like an individual sport. Maybe like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Maybe like kind of like wrestlers. Like where I grew up, wrestling was pretty big, and so like they kind of all have that like eye of the tiger to them, which is, if you're gonna get on a bronc, you kind of need the eye of the tiger. If you're gonna like wrestle another human being, you kind of need the eye of the tiger. But it might not have the same, like you said, the same thought process as maybe teaching a horse to go down the fence or something like that.
That's what I find. Yeah. I mean, there's money on the line, just the same as in a rodeo deal, I guess. But I talk about it like I show horses. Heck, I don't show horses. But there's money on the line, and there is a drive to win, to prove what you've created or brought out. But it's just, I don't know. It's just a different mindset. The guys I'm around anyway, it's a lot different. I'm around some really good people down here.
Yeah. Cool.
It breeds a good thing. Everybody tries hard for good reasons. It's not a selfishness at the base. Yeah. It's trying to do better kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this one question then, because I've always been curious about this too. If you did have at least a little bit of rough stock experience, and just kind of were familiar with that and got to a level where maybe you're probably comfortable with that, did that ever say later on you got around, like maybe you're going to like a Buck Brannaman colt starting or something like that, and you're or you're even today with your job, like you're starting colts, did that like familiarity with, I guess, kind of just in that case the horse is going to buck, but I find sometimes, like here on the East Coast, there's horses that buck out here, but there's a lot less people that have dealt with horses that buck. Right? Does that make sense? And I'm sure by now you're probably handy enough. You don't have to deal with a lot of bucking horses like day to day, right? When you're starting them, hopefully. But just in the beginning, it's like, okay, well, we're going to try to do everything right. And like, this is going to look like a Ray Hunt DVD, and we're just going to lope off and it's going to be beautiful. But if it doesn't do that, I know that I at least have some like level of preparedness for, if things get touchy, I'm not going to like completely lose my head all of a sudden when I feel them hump up. And I've been around horses all my life, and grew up starting horses, maybe not the right way, but I was familiar with green horses before I got around like Buck and some other guys. But I was always curious about if someone had a rodeo background, if that would like help them be prepared to be a colt starter later in life, because you don't have that like, I'm not going to panic if things do start going sideways. Hey, On the Move listener. Have you been following us on social media? Have you been watching the video format of the podcasts? If so, you've probably noticed by now that we have On the Move merch. I'm wearing one of our hats right now. The first order of hats we did flew off the shelves, and we've only got a handful left in each style. But we're doing another order, and if you want to pre-order your On the Move hat today, go to www.onthemovepodcast.com. There you'll find our Shopify store with hats, mugs, stickers, and other merch. Get it just in time for the holiday season and let everyone know that you're on the move.
Yeah, I think there are certain similarities, but I always describe the bronc riding I did. I was never that great at it, but it was always, to me, I would describe it to people as like an 8-second fist fight. Like, you got to be ready to get real. That's happening. So you better have your mind right. I don't like when I get on the colt, I think he's gonna get tight or whatever. I just stay loose and hang and rattle. Like, it's not like, oh, gotta get ready. No. So, but the familiarity, the comfortable feeling you have of just getting on something and just going with it and knowing that's what's going to happen and being okay with it. There's a certain bridge between the two, I think. I kind of liked riding buck and horse, but I really didn't either. Just like when I ride these colts, I don't want them to buck. I don't want them to get trouble. Is the bigger deal. If they did kind of hug around, it doesn't bother me. But the familiarity, the comfortable knowing it can be, and it's no surprise. It just makes life just entering up into it more relaxed. I don't feel worried.
Yeah. So, right. Which, and then, that'll translate right to the colt, right? Because you're like, okay, I'm entered up. I'm gonna ride through this, but you're not transmitting all that anxiety down into the animal.
We got bigger things on our minds. Bucking's an afterthought.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
cool. Well, like I said, I'd always been curious about that because I kind of grew up in a place where rodeo wasn't very big at all, and then getting more into the horsemanship world, and there are guys with rough stock backgrounds, and I did have that thought. I was like, I'm sure they're learning just like I am, but having that background, I feel like if anything, it would help just getting around young, touchy horses.
Yeah, just being comfortable. It's fun to experience a lot of that when them horses are really, like on a saddle bronc, when I'd get on them and they'd come out, and all that life, all that energy, to feel that and be like, okay, I felt that. It's not a surprise. That comfortable feeling. It really it just makes you to where you're kind of prepared for, well, yeah, go ahead. It's okay. It's all right.
Right.
It's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard someone talk about bucking on a horse as comfortable, but
yeah. Well, if it's a guy, they buck. That's what they do. If they get troubled, sometimes that happens. You gotta be comfortable. If you're okay with it, they'll be okay. They won't stay there. They don't want to stay there.
Yeah. Do you think that's what makes a good rough stock rider, is that they have the ability to not overthink it, but just get really loose and just really be comfortable and just push all the fear out and just ride it and just make it seem like fun and like it's no big deal at all?
Yeah. I think they're the guys that are really good, the guys that I know that are really good at it. It's their second nature. It's just, they don't think about it. It's like breathing. They can just react. And I mean, they're athletes at that level. They're just able to do that because they've done it so many times in their mind, and they can just react without thinking. They're just in tune, because those horses at the NFR, man, they buck. Holy cow.
Yeah. No kidding.
No. Yeah. That was the craziest thing. And we don't need to talk about the NFR forever, but you can watch all the videos on YouTube you want. Like you see an NFR eliminator horse in person, and I mean your jaw hits the floor. Like
Yeah.
I've never seen, I've even watched pretty high level like Grand Prix jumpers and stuff like that, but the power those horses are generating when they buck is phenomenal. It is
No joke,
insane.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy, a friend of mine, I worked with him over in Nevada, Tanner Butner. He's down there, the NFR. This is his second year. He rides them broncs at the NFRs the same we rides them. He'd get on some snarty horses out there, and I worked with him in Spring Works out there in 18, I believe. And he'd ride them snarty horses that he'd have to get on in the middle of the night to go do a job, and he'd get on them the same way, no worries, just going to do his job. And man, he's just good at it, But those guys are just,
Yeah.
it's their natural ability. That's why they are where they are, top of the top, cream of the crop.
Well,
Yeah.
That's like a lot of things, though. You said how it's like breathing for them. I mean, that's like especially anything that's bang bang. Like that's like a good football player, right? He doesn't think about everything he's going to do. Or a good roper. It's like you don't think, okay, now I'm going to do this, and then you do it, because then if you have that many steps, it's not going to work out.
No, it's too many.
You just have to get it where you're in like that. I've heard people describe it as like kind of like a flow state, where you're just like, this is what I'm doing right now, and you don't think, you don't like really the like your internal monologue isn't really even there. It's just you're seeing, and then right to your nervous system, your body's reacting.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So what makes them great? They can just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to back you up for a minute, because earlier you were talking about, you like being there because of that, the camaraderie, or that feeling, I guess more competition that you find in I guess in an industry where you're being judged, right? And that did stand out to me. Like when we were at the NFR, I was really impressed. I mean, not to keep bashing the rodeo guys, but I've walked out of some rodeos. You go to these small town ones, especially here on the East Coast, and it'll just be kind of rough. And you get about halfway through, and you're like, I'm good. You just kind of back out. And that show down there was so good. And there was kind of a feeling of camaraderie. And I'm not even, no, for one, Joe and I we're not even in that world of those guys, but also not even nearly at that level, right? But just being around all those people, you still kind of had a camaraderie. You're all wearing hats and stuff, and you're all there's this camaraderie. But there was a real, like, this feeling. I don't know how else to describe it, but man, when you see the guys, rope a steer and tie it down, or, to be honest, not to, be weird or anything, but even the barrel horses, when they would come out, you'd get a little feeling there. You'd be like, come on, that. And I think when I was listening to you at the beginning of this podcast, I kind of feel the same way. And I don't really know how to delve into this, but I think maybe with starting colts and sometimes with the horsemanship world, we kind of long for something to, like a ruler to hold to our work, to kind of judge where we're at. And I don't think we even want it in a bad way. It's not a competition thing, but you probably know people that play golf or just any other kind of hobby or sport. You don't hear a guy come back from golf and say, yeah, I'm not, I'm not that great, and then just walks off. He's going to tell you he did all right, and he'll probably tell you his score. He's going to be excited. He's comparing that to his last game, and it's not like a braggy thing. He's just excited. There's a game he's playing. There's a score. Other people have a score. You can see where they're at. You can learn from them. You can get better. And so sometimes maybe, you're working at becoming a better horseman, and you're working, but then you see guys like when we were at that rodeo where, man, there is a score for sure, and everybody knows who's the best. And I'm sure there's some bad players, but for the most part, you saw a lot of camaraderie where a guy might have, totally scored at the top, and then another guy could come right behind him and top that score. He'll be cheering for that guy, 100%. because it's so cool. Now you have a better target to hit. So I did watching that. There was a part of me that's a little bit jealous of that. You're like, man, that would be cool to all be, you're all doing the same thing. You all kind of know where each other are at, and you're doing it in a way where you're excited for each other and you're all working towards becoming better. And then for me, like I can be at something like that and then come home where I'm going to ride a lot of horses by myself. The couple people I am around are like customers and clients and people like that. And I just don't have the ability to be around people that are better than me every day. So at least I can take that feeling of camaraderie and competition a little bit, come home and work a lot harder at something totally different. But that revs me up being at something like that. And that really impressed me. Yeah. And I wonder if that's, I don't know your thoughts on that, because I know that's a touchy thing. Like some guys will be in the horsemanship world and then people go, oh, he's going to the performance world. But it's like, I don't know. It's kind of funny, the mudslinging there sometimes. But all I know is being at the NFR was fun, man. And I was super impressed, and it made me want to do what I do and what I'm pursuing 100% better. Just watching those guys.
Read that. It should be a bigger picture kind of thing. The most fun, the best work I've done was always with my pards. My friends, starting big bunches of horses. We'd get so much more done. We'd kind of jive off each other. It was just a building thing, and it wasn't a competition at all. It was just a camaraderie, doing things. It made it 10 times better. And in this whole riding game, it's nice because you're never alone. You're never alone, and you keep that in the back of your mind if you had trouble or you want to just talk about stuff with guys. There's always guys to talk to. I always have guys to talk to. I'm blessed. I have some of the best people in the world. We all do the same thing, and we just can't get enough of it. And when we get around each other, it just is always better, and we try to make that happen often.
Hey guys, let's talk about steel buildings for a minute. Maybe you've looked into making one, building one on your place. Maybe you saw the price tag and that scared you off. Maybe just the sheer amount of work and effort, planning, all that good stuff that goes into it has kept you from going ahead and building on your property. Well, now's a great time to get a free quote from a great company. Head over to www.metalmdi.com/on-the-move. And our friends at Metal Material Direct have a free online configurator. You can plug in all your details, dimensions, specifications, colors, windows, dormers, all kind of cool stuff. And you can see the building and get a free quote. If you head over there now and tell them that the guys from On the Move sent you, you can get a massive discount on your building. And we're talking American steel. This is top quality stuff, guys, and a great company. They also offer fencing, a really cool fencing solution. It's octagon pipe with bolt together connectors. So don't miss out on this. If you have wanted to build, need a building, or building fence, building an arena, just anything ranch, farm, or commercial related, head on over to www.metalmdi.com/on-the-move and tell them that the guys from On the Move sent you.
Yeah.
Just keep learning.
And that's a cool perspective too, because it's more like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of deal with what you just described, as opposed to, I don't know, if you're Ford and your buddy's Chevy, and you're like, well, I can't tell them like what I got going on over here, right? Because this is going to be my edge or whatever. And there are people in the horse world that look at it that way, and it really only it's to their own detriment,
right?
Because it's like, okay, well now, for you, like Wes Ferrazzi, you have access to your experience, then the experience of everyone you're willing to sit down and talk with and have that camaraderie with, right?
Yeah.
And then, the person over here who's like, well, no, because I can't let anybody know what I got going on, yada, yada, yada. Which, I don't, I know Ben probably doesn't either, and it doesn't sound like you do, Wes, but those people are out there in the horse world, 100%.
Absolutely. They're everywhere.
Yeah. But those people, all they've done is just put themselves on an island. They've put themselves in a pillar, and you're not going to have all that outside experience. And,
what fun is that?
Yeah, exactly.
That gets awful lonely out there by yourself.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Well, and that would involve not being very talkative, and I don't think that would ever kind of suit you anyway, Wes.
Yeah. But absolutely, Joe. I mean, absolutely, that's in every walk of life. But I think that's what's cool is that, you recognize that in the horse industry that, sometimes the fun side, the tip of the spear is where some of the competition is. And
Sure.
Yeah, there's a fun energy around that because I'm certainly not ever around that for the most part. It's just not, but it's fun and then you realize a lot of those guys are pretty nice. And
exactly.
It's
you really get to know people.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't compete. I don't show a horse. I don't have a horse to show. But I'm around the people that do. And heck, they're a bunch of good people. Whether they're showing cow horses or cutting or team roping or whatever, and they're a bunch of good people. There are the ones that aren't, but hell, there's that in every walk of life. What do you do?
Yeah.
Take what you can out of it. I'm going to take what I can out of it, and I'm going to use it and leave the rest behind. That's what I'm going to do.
So I want to talk more about what you do now, Wes. But let's talk about. I know you said you started out kid in Minnesota, and you reached out for what you had available to you, which was rodeo. Kind of following your dad's tracks a little bit and working with what you had. How did you go from there? From that stage, where'd you go next to kind of seek out being a cowboy, so to speak?
Well, it was, when I was a kid, Western horseman was a big thing. So I'd get a Western horseman. I had boxes of old Western horsemen. And I don't know where I got the idea of cowboying and what it was on those big outfits. And I guess I read about it. I don't even like to read much, but I read about it and seen it. And I was like, I don't know why, but it suited me. And I try to do it, I try to learn. I buy videos, and watch all them. And then as soon as I got out of high school, I left. And before I left, I knew I had to be worth something, otherwise nobody would want to hire me. So I tried to work on everything and anything I could that I knew would make me valuable for the jobs that I would want to do, which was not hard to do because I wanted to do that anyway. So I'd eat, sleep, and breathe it. I'd rope the dummy in the middle of winter. I rode colts when I was a kid, and I do it in my own style, which was nothing like anybody around where I grew up. I was a black sheep. People would tell me that I was weird, doing crazy things, because nobody where I grew up ever did anything the way I was doing it. But it was, starting colts like Ray, and I'd watch his videos and want to do it like that, so I'd get on them, cruise around. But when I ended up leaving Minnesota, I had something at least was, usable for an outfit of some sort. And what I did was I ended up taking a job in Clark, Wyoming, riding colts for a guy. And that's where I cut my teeth as far as kind of getting out and about in the West. And
How
I
old
had all
were
the
you then?
colts I ever wanted to ride right there, man. And I would just build to them, and man, I had a blast.
Yeah.
Got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And
How old were you when you moved to Wyoming?
now 19-ish. 19
Okay.
Wow.
by the time I got
So,
there.
so here's a question for you. When you went to that first job in Clark, Wyoming, how did the expectations meet with the reality of how things really were when you showed up?
You know, I should start out that when I got out of high school, I thought I was going to be a saddle maker, which didn't last long. So I went to work with this guy in Edgemont, South Dakota. And when I got there, the first thing we did for the first month was brand calves. And that was the worst thing that could ever happen because we weren't in the shop. We were out branding calves. And I was like, this is awesome. And I got all that going. Of course, I'm working with him. And then I'm in the shop a little bit. And then I figure out, well, this saddle making business isn't really going to suit me. So I hooked her on back to Minnesota. And then I wasn't there long. And I hooked her up to Clark on my own. And that's when I got into them horses. And I had an idea because I was with some good hands when I was in South Dakota, what it kind of took. And then when it was on me, kind of in a sense to, all right, here's all these horses. It's on you now. You got to do it all yourself. I just didn't have a doubt in my mind. They were horses. I could ride them. And that's what I did. And I never got in any trouble. Some of them would buck a little bit, but I didn't want them to. I treated them good. They come around, and it was good. I had 70 some horses started in 3 months, and
Wow.
it was a lot of work. It was by myself, but I didn't go anywhere. I just kind of leaned into them and had a blast. I was happy, But
Wow.
I learned a lot. I just wanted to learn a lot, but I wanted to learn a lot, but I wanted to use what I had, what I did know, and I got to. That got me going, I was never without confidence. It was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
So they hired you to come start those colts. Did you did they vet you out ahead of time? Did you have to send them a video that you knew how to start colts, or how did that work? Because coming from where you came from, I feel like today people are a little more I don't know, they kind of vet you out. There's ways of vetting people out, right?
Yeah,
you can hear someone's name and know a hell of a lot about them before you meet them.
You got covered from Minnesota. I'm sure we had some. Me and a buddy drove out there, and he thought he needed 2 guys. And we showed up. I don't even know if we rode a horse while we were there. I can't remember. But we checked the place out, hooked her back to Minnesota, got a phone call, says he only needed 1 of us. And they wanted me to go, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm taking the job. I told my buddy. He's like, dang it, okay. And we just met the guy and talked to him,
Yeah.
And I'm sure he would have run me off if I wasn't getting anything done. He had a lot to do, a lot of horses to ride. But it wasn't like today where, well, I need to see a video and I got to do this. No.
Yeah.
Just show up and here they are. Go to it.
So what kind of outfit has 70 colts to start? Was it a big ranch or?
Question. He was he was like a horse trader guy in a sense. He would stock kind of, if a ranch needed like a number of geldings, he'd have a bunch of broke horses there, and he'd sell them like 10, 15 at a time to certain places, I guess. And then he bought all these colts. They were all decent bred colts, and he was gonna get them going and sell them. So that was his business, I guess. I mean, I didn't really think too much of it. I was just there riding them horses. That's what I did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you're 19 and you have an opportunity like that, you don't ask questions, right? You just go to her.
Yeah, I mean, it was an adventure. That's what I was looking for. So that's what I was just clinging to. Well, it didn't pay very good at all. It was terrible. I don't know, $900 a month. I wasn't there for like 3 months though, so money wasn't the thing I was looking for anyway. And then,
but I imagine
I got another job.
Yeah, I imagine though starting 70 colts, that probably would change you in some way. Did that change, like, I don't know, your trajectory, what you wanted to do, or did it help you kind of narrow down where you wanted to be in the cowboy world in terms of like, kind of like, oh, well, I want to kind of go in this direction after having been dunked in that?
I wanted to be around good hands. That was my goal. People that were knowledgeable, but I wanted to do the work too. So I guess it didn't change much, except my next job, I'm like, well, I want to go ride with people I don't want to do this alone. I want to go do it with other people because that'd be fun, And like I said, I want to be around knowledgeable people. But it really concerned me. I wanted to be worth something to them. I didn't want them to be the guy that showed up and they were like, oh, this guy, I wanted to be of value. And so between the two things, trying to find people that were knowledgeable and then be worth something, that was enough of a goal in mind for me to strive for. Mm-hmm. And it took some searching. That's still my goal today. I want to be the same. I want to be worthy of showing up and people say they're glad I'm there. And I love getting around handy people. I love it. It just, it gives me so much inspiration just to see what other people can do with their horses and get the job done and have fun. And I think it's the coolest thing in the world, personally.
Yeah. So earlier though, you said you're not a competitive person. How would you describe yourself? Because you're clearly quite driven. You're clearly wanting to be the tip of the spear, I think, in a good way from listening to you talk. But if it's not competitive, what would you classify it as?
That's a good question. I don't. I'm not. Success. I'm really not competitive. I don't really care about winning a ribbon or a buckle. But I mean, I don't know. I want to be good at my craft, I guess. But I want to be around other people that are good too. I don't know. How would you describe that? It's a weird question.
Yeah.
Never thought of it before. I don't know.
Well, that's why they pay us the big bucks, Wes.
Oh, there you go. Good thing.
Yeah, we'll get an analyst in here from the On the Move, and they'll take care of that. To back it up even a little bit more, so you were saying, you were starting some colts back at home when you were learning and just practicing stuff. It sounds like as a teenager. That's interesting that what you were doing. People were like, "Oh, that's weird. Why are you starting colts like that?" Because in my experience, I have seen some people that do what you were talking about. They'll be in an area where there's none of that horsemanship, and they start watching Ray Hunt DVDs or reading, Buck's books or just diving into some information, and they start trying it on horses. And next thing you know, they're like the little town horse whisperer. Like everybody's like, "Oh, Johnny's just got away with horses. Let's take him horses." Did you have any of that, or was it mostly people that were pretty set in their ways going, "What are you doing?"
No, I didn't have any of that. There'd be a lot of people that want to get me in trouble with a horse. But I never got a reputation of any kind of being any kind of
Yeah,
the person,
but not
or
even
whatever.
not even on like a grand scale. But I don't know how long ago that was. I thought that was funny you said that, because I have seen um, and Joe, I don't know what you think about that, but it does seem like when people get into the horsemanship a little bit, people tend to like get excited. They're like, oh, what's this kid doing? Even if they don't know anything about where they're drawing the information from, instead of getting sent like crappy horses. Well, you still get sent crappy horses, but it's like by, women that have rescued them or something, and they think that you're going to help out. And they're all excited that there's like,
Ooh,
Uh-oh. Did he
we
cut out
lost
on
him.
you? Yeah, cut out on me too. That
Terrible.
happens.
That happens. This is a normal thing.
Well,
that's
hadn't
right.
been for a while, but all right. So we didn't.
You guys can hear
We
me?
were making fun of you.
Oh, that's all right. I'm a great target for fun, man. But what I
You're
was saying
thick-hided.
was
You'll be
that
all right, man.
I don't know if I'm thick-headed or not, but it's getting thicker. I can tell you that.
Good. You'll need it.
Yeah, I'll start riding rough stock soon. But yeah, it's like that thing where you get I kind of forget where I was going with that, but I just thought that was kind of funny, because I know I've seen I feel like that happened to me a little bit. Like I was this kid who just wanted to be a cowboy, and next thing you know, oh yeah, that's what it is. You're that kid that, like, there's always that horse farm or that stable where they like have a lot going on, but no one's really a horseman there, but they do a lot of horse business. So anytime a horse comes through that maybe bites people or kicks a little bit or barely rank at all, right? They let go find some sturdy kid that they can put on there, and he's going to like buck it out for them. And so I felt like people wanted me to be that kid.
On the bronc.
Yeah, like I was the kid that helped with the feed and the hay and all that stuff, and I wanted to ride. But you didn't get to ride unless you were like daddy's girl with daddy's money. So I would just kind of be there helping out. But then it was anytime there was a horse like that where no one liked it, maybe it bit people, they were like, oh, Ben, if this is your chance if you want to start riding. But around that same time is when I started watching Ray's videos and learning some of that stuff. So, but then you could see the same handwriting on the wall where people are like, oh, okay, well, you're not the kid that's just going to be our rag doll. You're going to be the horse whisperer. So now, and my thoughts were like, I'm going to get away from this, because I'm not. I'm just doing that. Book said to do this, and it worked really well. And I have nothing to do with that. I just want to go find more of that. Go find people that can do that. But
I lived with my saddle in the front seat of my pickup all winter long. Winter should be. Oh, we lost him again.
Hey there, On the Move listener. Do you enjoy listening to this podcast? If you've made it this far in the episode, I assume you do. But you never know. I could just be talking to someone's house cat at this point. But if you are there and you like the podcast, the best thing you can do to help support our journey to keep this thing going is to find us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, leave a rating, leave a review, get on social media, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube. The more we can grow this, the easier it's going to become for us to put out episodes every week and get awesome guests so we can learn and stay on the move just like you. Thanks.
all right, how's that?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay, all I could hear for a minute there was you, Joe, saying okay, and I was like, dude, that's a record amount of okays in a row. It was going good, but I think I'm all set now. Did I miss?
Excellent.
So you guys might have already talked about it, but where I remember things crashing out was you were saying you were living with your granddad or something.
No,
I live in town.
he lives in
Oh.
town.
That's
Town
what happened.
is where I reside, and it's a little jaunt away from the barn here, so I have a little commute, which is different for me, but it's not bad. Living in town part isn't good, but heck,
Yeah,
it's not going to last long. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, we'll probably have to do some editing anyway. But yeah, that was a good train of thought though. So he was saying, Ben, you you're there at is it Kyle Noyce?
Kyle Noyce. Yep.
Noyce. Okay, so he's full-time cow horse trainer, and you're there starting colts, and you do start colts for him, but you also kind of run your own business out of that facility as well, where you're
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
not just his colts.
So this time of year is a busy time of year for me. This is when we're starting all these coming 2-year-olds, and like I'll take all of Kyle's coming 2s and start them, and then that's right now, and then I'll start. I've got local people's horses. I got some horses from. I get them from all over, but I am doing my own thing separate, so it's not full time for anybody. So
Yeah,
gotcha.
Well, on the map there, you're dead in the middle of the country. So do you think that helps you as far as? I mean, I know guys will say they get horses from all over, but do you feel like you really get them from anywhere in the country because you're right there in the middle?
I do get them from a wide circle here. They come from Illinois, Colorado, Missouri, Kansas, just local horses around here. All over the place. Quite the range.
Do you set it up so your work is seasonal, or do you kind of stay pretty steady in your workload year round?
I try to stay pretty steady. That's my goal, and it's not too hard to do. I get a lot of, like I said, this time of year is my busier time of year. I try not to have more than 5 or 6 colts at a time. Right now, I've had 7 here, and that's just the colts. That's not including my own horses I ride. But I try to keep it kind of lower numbers, and I think it's low numbers around that 5 mark, just because I can take more time and there's no rush. It's more relaxed.
Yeah, that's the number I try to hit is 5 outside horses plus mine. So it makes me feel good that someone else does that too, because I haven't really discussed.
Well, we like to play too, so we'll rope or. We work I work my older horses on a cow, or just working my older horses. It just takes time as well, and when you add all that up, it's just what the numbers fit.
Sure. And so with those older horses, are those horses that you're, they're just your personal horses, or are you eventually going to sell them, or how does that usually work out?
So I've got a couple that I'm going to sell. I don't sell a whole lot of horses. It just hasn't really been part of my deal. But when I came down here, I brought all my ranch horses with, and I've gotten I day work down here too, so I use them still. But having horses, it's like you always have way too many or not enough, and it just depends, and it's never really a happy medium. It seems like. So I'll sell a couple of mine, and that's the goal. And I've got a couple of younger ones. I'm riding my own horses that'll, the older horses don't have to do everything. Just try to keep a steady string of good horses coming along, which I always like to have a job. So
right,
it works out.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that, when we had Nick Dowers on here. He said something that I thought was a really good perspective from kind of the business end of things. And I really respect Nick as a horseman, and he's definitely someone I think who's involved in everything for the right reasons, But it's nice to hear someone like that kind of talk about the financial side. And he said, well, I take, obviously he's taking horses to show for people. And he said, I take a certain amount of these. But then I tell myself, okay, I need to take time to ride my horses. And obviously there's lots of good reasons for your own development why you got to ride and progress your own horses and have your own horses. So if you do want to go do a job, it's important. But the other thing he said is, like I might be riding these horses, spending however much time, couple hours a day working on this horse, and it might be my horse, and I might not get like a check every month for riding this horse, but then I look at it as that's the ride where I build equity every day. And so then eventually, however many years down the road, when I sell that horse, it's a check that's big enough where it's, you might not make the same amount of money, but it's like, well, I had this horse. I was already going to have horses. I was already going to, rope or day work or do whatever. And then I was able to, kind of build some financial equity by having that horse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that was really good for me to hear personally, because when you're first starting out doing this, it's really easy just to like look at the numbers on a sheet and it's like, well, why, if you're trying to make money, why would you ever own a horse?
Yeah.
Just ride everyone else's horses. And then, you never really get to progress anything past however long someone's willing to pay you to ride it, which usually isn't as long as you'd like to progress something.
Right.
So it was like, okay, well then keeping your own horse, it's just it's a vanity / self-development thing. And then when I heard Nick say all that, it was like, well, no, you don't have to sell every horse, but if you do sell some of them, you are kind of investing in the future by taking time to develop those horses. That was good for me to hear. And just what you said kind of reminded me of that advice Nick gave us. So it's cool you're what I would consider another guy who's kind of doing the colt starting thing successfully. So it's cool to hear you say that.
Yeah, no, you got to have some around, kick around. I day work, my wife day works. We love to go brand calves. If we're gonna go on a little getaway, we're gonna go do some work, and just having those horses that are good, you can just pick up and go and just enjoy yourself like we did over there, KRC. Just that kind of stuff, and it's fun to have them around and just enjoy it. Still part of what you do, and you can just forget everything else and enjoy it with a good horse and one that you made and have fun.
Yeah. That big gray horse you had, that was a cool horse. He looked like he was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a good horse. I enjoy him.
Yeah, no law against doing some work and having fun at the same time, huh?
Right.
Have you ever worked somewhere where that seemed like a conflicting idea, where work was pretty regimented and you felt like fun wasn't really on the agenda?
Absolutely. Those places are terrible. I don't recommend them. And when you're first getting out and doing stuff, you have to sort those places out. But there's so many good places to be, and you can just enjoy your work and enjoy the people and enjoy your horse. And you shouldn't have to really tolerate too much of that. But I know I tolerated plenty of it. It's part of the growing process.
Yeah. Or like Joe was talking about, sometimes you might even work for yourself and you kind of pigeonhole yourself into just being so narrow-minded. You're not even having fun, and you're the guy who's in charge. So,
that's right. It's great.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun every day. I got it made. I got good horses, good people, plenty to do. Man, it's a lot of fun. I'm doing what I wanted to always do, and I really don't have any complaints.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so let's talk about. I'm curious a little more in your setup. You said you're starting horses for Kyle right now. How many colts do you usually start for him?
He'll have around 5 or 6 a year. That's what he's kind of been doing. This is only my second year here with him, but that's kind of what he's had for the most part. And like I said, they're all coming twos, and I just ride them I get them for 2 months, and I just kind of get them happy and in a good frame of mind, and kind of understanding what the daily things are, and after that, he'll take them and continue on, just real low key. A lot of it'll be with a cow, and it's just easing into the whole program, his program.
Mm-hmm.
Is he starting colts alongside you, or are you starting all of them and then he takes over after a certain point?
He'll take them. It's just like sending a horse home.
Yeah. But I mean, does he start some colts too, like at the same time, or he doesn't start any? Okay. Earlier you were talking about.
I mean, he could, but heck, he's got plenty else to do.
Yeah, I imagine. So what has that been like in terms of you were talking earlier about how, getting around those type of horses, you've been learning some things, and there's just been, you were like saying how it's almost hard to describe, but there's a little different feel even, and it's a lot of fun. So if you're starting colts for a guy like that, like what's a few, could you give me an example of something that you feel you've learned, or you do a little different for his horses, or I don't know, is it something you leave in there, something you take out?
That's a good question. It is different. And I tell you, for me, what I've learned, it's important to me that these horses in this deal, like I feel like this should be some of the best times of their life. I feel it's important to them to know that they're okay. They can have fun. They can, every day should be like, oh, this is great. There's so much to see and do. And they should have that kind of mentality. I get to give them like I get to put in them a good frame of mind. And when they go to a new task, they look at it as, okay, they'll search, learn, and be happy with what they're searching for. And it all, to me, starts right in the beginning, and it is to be fun, light, no pressure. And then when pressure does come, they think through it, and they can be happy and enjoy it. So my biggest goal, or what I've tried to put in these horses specifically, is to be curious and search for the good things that they're doing, like, because they don't ask them to do anything that they can't physically do, and it should be fun, just like you or I having to go do something. We can physically do it. We might as well find a way to enjoy it, and they want to do it. So, I try to really get them thinking every day is a new day, and this is great. And look at what you get to do. We don't do a whole lot of the same stuff. We go ride out here. We're gathering these cattle out here. I ride everywhere. Just seeing new things, and then it really gets those colts thinking, "Oh, this is great," and it carries a long ways, I feel like, with these horses.
Yeah. I almost wonder, because, you're an educator, basically. You're an educator of horses. That it's a difference similar to like if you were like a public school teacher. And I'm sure there's some that enjoy it, but I'm sure sometimes it gets kind of taxing. You're just trying to like teach kids and make solid citizens and push them out the door, versus if you were a private tutor, or like a small, like, or you homeschool your kids, or like something where like you have these kids and you're not trying to like make them into something when they grow up, but you're trying to give them all the tools that they can possibly get so that they can succeed and kind of hold themselves upright, versus just kind of having like nameless, faceless pupils come through and go out. And you're like, well, they'll be safe and they'll be good to go. But instead you're thinking down the road, like, I'm working with a guy who's going to take these horses and it's an art. He's going to create art, and he wants them to kind of fulfill what they can do naturally. I imagine that's got to be rewarding and even fun. You probably even feel like you have, like, that is the job. The job isn't, because I'm curious about that, because sometimes I will have a client horse and I can tell that they're going to show. And I sometimes, like, I'm pretty confident that I can make a horse that'll be safe. But sometimes those horses, I almost don't even like those clients, just because I don't think I can do a good job for them. Like I get that they're trying to do something special with their horse, and I almost want to be like, I don't know, I'll make it safe, but maybe I'm going to take something out of your horse, or I don't know. I can just tell that they really care about how it's going to move or how it's going to perform in the arena, or if they're a jumper or something like that. And I kind of feel sometimes like, hey, I can make you a safe ranch horse or a safe trail horse or start a colt for this or that, but if this thing is going to go on and be like a specific horse for a job that you have in mind, like maybe I'm not your guy. I haven't really said that to anybody, but I do feel that way sometimes. Like it's a little more daunting when I know that they're going to show that animal versus just have a safe horse.
It's different. Yeah, it's a different thing. I want them all to be comfortable with stuff, but there's things. I'm not gonna. I can ride them all with a flag, or go do a job, open gates, and blah de blah de blah, and everything's fine and safe, and they're okay with themselves. They're open to new things. So if they're just kids, so if they got scared of something and somebody else was on them, well, it's that person's job to take over and say, hey, no, you're fine, and go do their job, or be okay with it. I put a lot of responsibility on people personally. It's their job to show the horse it's okay if the horse did get scared. These colts, they're going to go work a cow and do all this cool stuff, and Kyle does a great job of showing them what that is, and then sometimes they get scared or whatever, and he just hangs in there and shows them what the deal is. And I think that's the same with everybody who has a horse. It's their responsibility. And some people get hung up, I think, on, well, you got to make them safe for grandma. Well, yeah, make them safe for grandma, but grandma also has a responsibility. She's going to get on the side of the gun, so she has to understand that there's things that she has to take care of. I'm more on the horse's side than the human side in a lot of these things. I'm all about getting one gentle, but I'm also not going to not put the responsibility where the responsibility lies. So it's just a different deal in this show thing. They're going to react. So you might use that, and that reaction that was maybe scared, it doesn't stay scared. It turns into an athletic thing, an understanding, and then you don't have to get them dull and then try to wake them up and then get them dull again and all this business. Just use it what it is, when it is, and go on with it. Another thing that I've learned here is don't waste opportunities when they arise for them colts. You ride them and they are scared. You might go really fast for a while, but through that fast thing they go through, when they come out the other side, they come out with understanding that they can go fast, and they come out the other side that they don't have to be scared, but they got to go fast. And that's a lot of the things that a lot of people can't handle. But different worlds, different things, riding for the public, for the general public. It's different than riding for people that use these horses for real, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Has it been a unique experience for you? Say Ben or I, who ride for the general public, you might have a colt 60, 90 days, put them on the trailer, and then you're like, okay, bye forever. And then, you don't get to see that person work with that horse, and you might get like a video 6 months later and oh, so-and-so's doing good. Here's them in the back 40 and life's good. All right, great. But was it interesting for you, to have those colts? You started those colts, and then, I don't know your exact setup, but I imagine you get to see Kyle ride them pretty regularly. So it's like instant feedback, and you can see things and you're like, oh, okay. Like it's just like a lot of information coming into you about, well, this is what I did with them. This is how the horse is going. This is what Kyle's doing with them now. And I feel like over time, kind of like what you were talking about, that would really prepare you to be like, okay, I know 100% what this horse is going into. Like, I know with some level of detail what Kyle's going to be doing with them, as opposed to like Ben talked about. So was that kind of new to you, or had you been in situations where you had passed colts off before and then you got to see someone ride them every day afterwards?
Yeah, kind of. At this level, yeah. But at this deal, what's really kind of cool is, like, when these colts are started, they go through this progression that is till the maturity. Well, the trick is, from what I'm figuring out, is the guys that really want to ride and the guys that do a good job, they ride often. They ride these colts a lot. They don't ride them hard, but what it does is it puts those colts on a trajectory that is just a steady incline. So the opposite, or another way some guys will ride them, is they'll get them started and leave them off, and then they'll pick them back up, and then they'll really do a lot in a short amount of time, or try to cram it in there. And it causes more problems than anything, I feel like. So these colts that are on a steady incline, they gradually learn all the time little things, and it just becomes a part of their life, and it never is a big deal. It never turns into a problem. It never turns into we got to get this done. And I think that's really, really, really important. I don't know if a lot of people really realize that the consistency these colts get in a program where they are rode so often, it never turns into a big deal. They never get overworked. They never go down a dark path,
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite, it does happen. The guys will, I got to get this son of a bitch doing this and that, and then they go mashing on them, and then that turns into a problem. So so like, well, Kyle taking over these colts, it's just such a fluid onto the next thing. Like, it just I'm off him, he's on him, and he's just doing more of that and just gradually going on, and it never, ever, ever turns into a problem. It's a lot of fun to see,
Could you maybe give some specifics about what that would look like a specific example? So when you say he's getting a lot, are they getting, maybe it's like 20, 30 minutes, 6 days a week or something? Like, what do you mean by he's doing a lot with them a little bit at a time?
So, like, it's like, not even 20 minutes. In the early stages, it's not even, 15 minutes, but it's just loafing around. It's raiding a cow. It's just being around it. And when the nice thing about the cow is, when the cow presents something, he shapes it up and then goes on with it. So the horse learns just, well, this is shaped up, and so you take advantage of that. The horse makes the move, or what have you, because he's shaped up to do it. And it's just that simple. And then little things like that over time just become, this is how it is. Well, they get more feeling of that, and then you start reining on them or picking them up on them to do some of that more specific stuff, like in the reining things. Well, they're already been moving around anyway. So you just pick up here, you hold here, and they just slowly get all these little things put into place. And it's just a bunch of little things over a long period of time. And these horses are athletic, bred to do it, very natural, and they just eat it up. It never does turn into a big deal. So it's just a lot of little things over a long period of time. the puzzle pieces just fit. So it's
Yeah.
not a big cloud of dust.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things in life like that, I mean, cramming for tests or, trying to get really good at basketball like 2 weeks before the tournament. Like just all these things that you can't do. You have to lay it one brick at a time.
Yeah.
If it's going to work. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of fun to see. It is a good time. It is to take something that far, see the whole process. It's cool. It's cool because those horses, man, they put out, and they do amazing things, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it takes a lot of effort from the people to get that at the surface. It takes a lot of time.
Wow. So to go along with that, so if you're riding those colts for Kyle, but you're also kind of doing your own deal on the side, do you start colts for other people that are showing, or are you starting like those other colts? That's got to be kind of interesting. Like, do you enjoy riding the colts for Kyle a lot more than your other clients? And don't worry, I'm sure none of them are listening, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Do I enjoy it all? Yeah, but it's interesting around these colts, these Calbred colts. It's interesting because there's a lot of studs, and they all come in here, and they're all been kind of mostly kept apart from everybody, so they're kind of little orangutans. And then, they buy them from a sale where they've been fitted. They've been blanketed and fed up, and they look like little beef steers, and they get just mulled around on, and some of them get kind of angry at people because they're really smart. They figure out really quick if they're smarter than you or not. And some of them come in kind of with a little chip on their shoulder. The studs come in here that are just, like I said, just out of their minds because they've never had any other horses to be around since they got weaned. A lot of them just kind of got sorted off, and so it's really fun for me to take them and fit them into because we keep all these studs colts together, and so I get to work them first, and I kind of get them going for the first day, and then they all go live together. But it just kind of their minds just change so much. It really is amazing how short amount of time they change. And the ones that are troubled, like these sale horses, not all of them, but some of them, they think they have this idea of what the human is, and they're like, I don't like that. Well, I get to get in there and change their mind, not in a bad way at all. Once you give them time to realize, they come right around because they're just so sharp, so smart.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what's your routine with those
other
studs?
Horses that I've gotten to start around here, the ones with bad reputations or whatever, they haven't been bad. They haven't had any, nothing that I thought was bad, just people just missing very simple little things. So they're interesting too, but I've gotten, barrel horses, backyard kind of ranch horses that people think are great, and then all the way up to these futurity colts that are gonna go win the world, So I can't say any one of them's better than the other, but man, they're all just so interesting in their own way.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So with those stud colts that haven't been around other horses, what's your routine with them? Do you just kick them right out, or do you work with them a little bit, or how do you integrate them to being around other horses?
Usually I'll work them first, and I'll work them with my horse, and I don't know how. It definitely helps. I think they do relate it, just getting to move off, and just the idea of somebody else is in the program kind of taking control. And I think by doing that, I think it helps them a lot once they get turned out with them other studs, because they all go walk into that pen and they're all looking at each other like, "Are you going to get me? Are you going to get me?" They instead of just straight attack mode, some of them, if you just threw them out there, they'd just thought the other ones were their toys, and they would have just gone out there and had their way with one another. So it kind of creates a little order, I think, just by working them first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And is that like you just like that day they come in, you work them and then turn them out, or you work them a couple days, or how do you?
Usually when they show up, it's like somebody will haul them in, and we might kick them in a stall for a day or two, depending on when I can get after them, and then so they might be in a stall for a day or two. I'll work them, then they get kicked out.
Cool.
And so we got a
Wow.
pen for the studs, pen for the fillies, and they all get to just be horses. It's nice. I like to keep them colts outside when I work them because they can move, they get sore, they can kind of lay down, they can just roll in the dirt, just be horses. And I think it makes them happier. They meet me at the gate in the morning, and that means something to me.
Yeah, that's a good feeling always.
Yeah. Gosh, you guys do have your hands full. So do you have somebody that feeds for you and does all that stuff? And what kind of crew do you have there?
Yeah, Kyle's got people that work here, takes care of the feeding. Heck, if I'm here, I'll help feed. And just we're all on the same team. We have fun. I work with some great people around here, so we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's nice. That's real nice. Wow. So you've got a heck of a story. You've got to have some funny stories from like when you first like showed up, practiced up, serious about being a cowboy. And I'm sure you've got to have one or two pretty funny stories about like being ready to like, and it sounds like in a really good way, like being ready to be the guy and have some skills. And then maybe people going, yeah, Wes, that's not really what we do. Or maybe you like totally killed the moment and they're like, where did you learn that?
Well, in that scenario, I always tried to stay ahead of it and watch what needed to happen. So I tried to stay out of trouble. All the wrecks I've ever been in was with usually just in crews that were, nobody was really taking the lead. So-and-so's trying to do this and the other guy's trying to do that. And nobody's like, who's the boss here? Okay, we got to have some sort of structure. This guy's roping a bull over here for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
And, their kids are running off, and just the folks from out of town that are visiting are getting bucked off. Those scenarios are a dime a dozen. There's out, you got to expect the unexpected with all this stuff. But shoot.
All that kind of makes you appreciate order, huh? Like to an extent that you're like, gosh, you think about your uncle that was in the military, or some person in your life that you used to think was so stiff and structured, and you're like, I get it. We need more of that.
Yeah, no, structure is important. Yeah. When I was a kid, going like we'd go help some folks that we knew in South Dakota gather and brand in the fall, and I was like 13, 14 years old. It was like, oh boy, this is the real deal, gonna go brand calves, and that feeling you're never in the right place, the feeling that you're like, I don't know, I should be here, but should I be here? Okay, it's good that I'm here. You just don't know what's going on. Those are the situations I learned earlier on that I was like, I got to get ahead of this, otherwise I'm not going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It just takes time, and just gotta kind of go through the motions. And I was around a lot of good people when I was a kid too. We were riding out there, and we were supposed to be gathering all these cows. And this one old guy I was with, he was a pretty serious feller, and I was just a kid. We're riding along, and he goes, "We're on the river bottom. It gets boggy, and we're like, for me, it was a long ways. I'm really trying to be serious and think about what's going on. And these two stud horses come out on the top of this butte, and I look up there, and they're just raising hell. Two colts, and I look at him, and I'm like, oh shit. And he goes, yeah, if that one of them comes down here and jumps in the saddle with you, you just have your knife ready. You slit that one. You slit its throat. And I'm like, oh man, are you serious? And he's like, no, but kind of.
Yeah.
Luckily, they never came down, but it was
Yeah,
real
that's
serious
hardcore.
stuff. But there was good people around that kind of kept it lighthearted too.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of going back to what you're saying before about having a good time. It does make you appreciate that, because like there's something about people. People are really enjoyable to be around that are like very driven, very structured, very like mission focused, but also like have that ability to be cool. Like
Yeah,
that's a great combination, because you'll be around those people that have none of the structure, none of the drive, but they're not cool people. And you're like, this sucks. But then you're around like Mr. Military commander, and it's just like I
too
worked for
much.
this one place in Montana. Yeah, and they did like the hourly, like you're already, well, you're barely paid, and you're on a salary basis, like monthly, but they would keep hours, and hours are good. So like back to the structure, like yeah, having a start time, great idea. Having a lunchtime, great idea. But when you've got all these times marked out, and then it's like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. Breakfast is at 7. You should be doing something for this hour. I don't care if you pick up a broom or if you re-straighten that shelf and mess it up and straighten it up again. Doesn't matter. That's a great job for you. Do that for an hour. And like that mentality will drive you nuts versus the guy who's like, hey, we're starting at 6, do whatever you want before then. And when you show up, when we start, it's real work. Like we're actually doing something. We're having a good time.
Yeah,
And that to me was nuts, because I had envisioned cowboying was going to be like Bonanza, something like that, and this was not Bonanza. This was like going to, join the Marines or something. Only that, and the job was just as meaningless and tedious a lot of the times. So, but then you'd be around some guy. What was really cool though is they did have some guys that worked there that had been on other outfits, and anytime they were kind of in charge of a small group and you get off by yourself, they were like the coolest guys. We'd get actual work done, and we'd have a good time. And it was like, that was a very clear line where you're like, huh, there's the over the top manager types, and then there's the guys who like are mission focused for real. Like they're trying to get a mission done. And part of the mission is keeping all the guys happy and gals and getting the job done. And not just filling clock space between, morning and evening. And like, I imagine you probably like what you do now, you probably are busier. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you might be busier than you've ever been in your life. But like you're having fun, and it's probably on your time schedule. Or if not, how do you structure that? Do you ride? Because you said, you're pretty consistent in making sure your horses get, not overly worked, but get a lot of consistent work. Do you think about that for yourself in terms of like having structured days off or time with your wife, or how do you fit that in to like a busy schedule, especially as a guy starting colts? Having animals for one is already crazy enough because anything can happen. So how do you structure that out, and how much thought do you put into that?
I try to put quite a bit of thought into it. It takes a little bit of creativity. It depends on when them colts first come in, first week or so, you're pretty busy. So you kind of tie yourself up, but then it'll kind of get to where you're like, okay, get 2 days off here. So try to match that with what I need to do. It just, like summertime around here, we start at 3 in the morning. And so you kind of got to adjust the whole schedule for that. when I have everything kind of going, I'll say, well, Saturday I'll be here for half a day and I'll kind of maybe ride this one that needs it and that one, and then we'll rope or do something fun, or, something to mix it up. And then Sundays I'm in church, my wife, and that's a consistency. But I try to keep it flexible because sometimes it's raining. Sometimes, you got to make up a little time. For my deal, I structure it as in that first 30 days, you're paying me, they're going to get at least 20 rides. Okay. And then they might get 50 rides in that 30 days. I mean, it's whatever it takes, but they're going to get rode at least 20 times. And that gives everything enough leeway for them colts to think, soak on what they're doing. For my deal, it just, that number is a consistency, and that's a number I can tell somebody and they can go, oh, I can wrap my head around that, and blah, blah, blah. That's what you're getting. But like I said, it might be 30 rides, it might be 50 rides.
Yeah.
Depends what that
and then
is. But
if you give,
with
if
that
you
structure,
give them that,
it gives me.
oh, I'm sorry. If you give them that number, what do they, if you give them that number and they say, that's cool, what does a ride entail? What do you tell them about that? Do you tell them how long you ride or what you do, or what do you consider a ride?
Well, when you send me a horse, it's in my program. So in my program, a ride is something that is, we're getting forward gains. We're accomplishing things for the betterment of the horse. So tomorrow's going to be better. Next day is going to be better. It's a forward thinking. It's going to be beneficial going ahead. So that ride might be, I work the sucker for, I don't know, a while, and I get on him and I get him bent left and right, and we walk around and he settles. Well, by golly, that took a lot for him to do that. That's what he got today. That counts, because tomorrow that's going to be what I use. And those things building on each other. But like I said, most of these colts ain't that troubled, so let's get them roped, saddled, and they get good to move out, get on them and go to work. It's a lot of fun. So you don't have to worry too much about it.
Yeah, I like your description. So is that what you tell customers when they ask you that? You describe it that way? Because I'll get that question sometimes, and it is kind of weird. Not weird anymore, but then and Joe could tell you sometimes I'll just kind of like unfiltered too. So I might not be that, I'm not mean at all, but I'll just be kind of like, well, this is what I do. Like, dude, you're hiring me. What's going on? That's but right. I like the way you describe that you could just tell them if they say, okay, cool, 20 rides. What is your ride? And you say, well, it's progress. It's like, I'm the professional. You hired me. So progress is what I deem a ride is. I like that description.
Yeah. It's my program, and I like to ride. I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to do it. I want to get better. I want the horses to do good. So if somebody thinks that I'm cheating them and whatever, they can take their horse home. I don't have to do that for people.
Or just killing time, right? Like I feel like some people, and you probably don't get this out there. This might even be more of an East Coast thing, but they want to know the number of rides per month. But then they also some of them want to know, like, how long do you spend? It's almost like that, back to that job I was telling you about in Montana, where it's like, oh, I spend an hour 5 days a week. And they'd be like, cool. But they don't even ask you what you do for an hour 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, it could be a 10-minute thing where you made this breakthrough and you're like, put them away. Or it could be 2 hours later and you're like, got through to them, put them away. Either way. But sometimes around here, they like that answer. If you're like, oh, it's about an hour, like, oh, good. Or if you said an hour and a half, they're like, oh, that's awesome. 2 hours, they might say, oh, you're going to work my horse too much. In 30 minutes, they're like, you cheapskate, you probably have 15 horses in training. You're just making money off me.
Yeah.
It's a very funny, like timeshare thing here. But I think it's an awesome opportunity. A lot of people end up coming around in the end, and that's a great thing. I haven't really said that, and I'm going to probably do that in the future and just say, oh, it's progress. It's like, I'm going for progress. I'm going to do the best I can for you. And so if we make progress, Like, isn't that what you want? You don't want like time. You want change.
But what do they know about it anyway? They're going to try to form an opinion on some sort of
they're going to try to tell you what
thing
they know about
think
it.
they know. They don't have a damn clue what they. That's why they send them to you. A lot of guys that start colts, and I start colts, a lot of them, and you'll run into the certain mentalities. People want to talk about it like, well, he just needs to get started, or well, how much is that going to cost? Oh, well, it's just riding. What's the big deal? Or they'll downplay it to a certain degree, and I think that is because a couple of things. Number one, they're cheap. Number two, they don't want to sound inferior. The people think it's not a big deal. Well, they don't know how to do it, and also, even I've known some accomplished riders that kind of downplay it, but the bottom line is they're scared. They don't want to get on the colts. They don't know what to do. They're scared because they don't know. But they're not going to give anybody else credit for knowing more and being okay with it. I think the 2-year-old guy needs to, or the colt starter guy needs to, an educated one. There's plenty of people out there that are just, warm bodies. But the ones that are educated about their craft, I'm not going to put up with it. I don't know about you guys, but if somebody, I'll get horses like this. I've had a horse here, a couple of them. People will be like, well, we're gonna do all this stuff, and then we'll send it up to you. I'm like, I don't want you to do that stuff because I don't want to ride it after you do that. And they're like, well, why not? Isn't that helping? Not really. No, it's not helping. And if you believe in your program so much, you ride it. Like, you're doing that stuff to get on the road, so just get on them. You're scared.
Yeah.
You might as well call it what it is. And those people, I tell them, no, don't do anything. Or what happens is they'll do their little program and they'll get them in trouble. And then all the bad, well, I don't want you to rope them, or, they'll say all this stuff and they'll fail because they're going to do it their way. And then all of a sudden it's okay. You can do all that stuff. It's like, give me a break, people. Seriously. Yeah. If you got to call it what it is. And I like calling those people out because they don't get to look at what I do as less than, because they can't do it. You guys are probably in the same boat. You guys are ride something. They're going to try to tell you what to do. Well, no, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah, you get the folks that say, "I'll do the groundwork, and all you'll have to do is swing on." And
no, thank you.
Yeah. For anybody young and up and coming listening to this podcast, like what Wes is saying, we're getting into the gold of the podcast, the stuff that you either learn trial by error or learn from someone more experienced than yourself. And I'll be honest, a lot of this is has gone trial and error for me. I've been around a lot of guys like you that do it for a living, or maybe sometimes I've been too dumb or too proud to ask somebody like, "Hey, when you run across this scenario, what do you do?" But it's made for some painful business experiences or painful relationships with clients where they're people you like, but you really didn't define it in the beginning. So you end up having this weird relationship with somebody that you're like trying to help. But at the end of the day, you're like, hey, like they don't know what they're talking about, and I haven't told them that. And so I'm trying to act like they know what they're talking about, and I'm trying to like ride their horse in a way that it looks good. And it can be a squirrely situation. At least it has been for me, because of lack of communication and a lack of just being honest, I guess. Probably also just being afraid of, like, you're not going to make enemies. You're just going to not have a potential friend. I'd think of it that way. But there's probably a fear of that for me sometimes. It's like, well, I don't want to make these people mad, so I'll kind of put up with their BS.
I don't want to rock the boat either, but I don't want to have to deal with him on that level. I'd rather just say it and be like, it's not how it is. This isn't your expertise or whatever. I'm not going to do that. Or just lay it all out there so they know. I don't want to be short-handled, and it's just not how it works, in my opinion.
Yeah. To me, it's like when someone, I'm not saying we're like plumbers, but like, there's people out there that'll try to critique their plumber. And you know what happens when you try to tell your plumber what to do is you end up with a pile of shit. Like it never works out when you try to, belittle someone. And, maybe it's not coming from a place of they're trying to belittle you necessarily, but you're trying to tell someone how to do what is very skilled labor. Right.
That's right. And, skilled labor.
And that's, and that's why they pay you money to do it. And like you said, you're established enough, Wes, and you're in a position now. And I feel like I am, and Ben, I know you probably feel like you are, but in the very beginning, it can be really scary because, you're trying to get your business off the ground maybe and trying to be a people pleaser. And the best thing you can do in the long run is don't try to be a people pleaser. Just, even if you're just starting out, say, well, but I do know I can do this and get this done if I do it this way, and just trust that. And don't have, whoever from down the street that's outsourcing all their colt starting try to tell you how to do it.
That's right. That's right. It's a
well, and I was just gonna say, for the record, I still feel like I'm starting out. I mean, my start might be going pretty well, and it might keep getting better, but I'm still starting out because I struggle with that stuff. Like, this isn't like, 3 years ago I had trouble talking to clients. Like, I'll have that stuff crosses my mind, and I'll have trouble saying, hey, don't do that groundwork before you send the horse. I'll kind of ease around that sometimes too much. So it's not. Well, I'm just saying. I'm speaking from experience currently, not in the past. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of times they don't even tell you that they're doing anything, which is fine. A lot of it ain't that bad. Shoot, it's hard to come across something that's so ingrained in them colts that's so bad that you can't get around it. But as far as some of it, it's just inevitable. But there's people that are trying to tell you what to do and downplay what you are actually accomplishing. That's where it gets a little touchy for me. Just it doesn't make any sense, But it's people. It's okay. It's what people do.
And it might be different for you, Wes, but I'd say like 90% of people aren't like that. Like most clients are good clients because if you do a good job, they're like, wow, that's a completely different horse that I dropped off 3 weeks ago, or, whatever it might be.
Like I was saying earlier, I put a lot of responsibility on the people. I think it's they need to put in the effort, and I'm not going to, I don't hear a lot of people complaining about much, but if they did have a complaint, it's pretty easy to pinpoint it, where it's coming from. And if they're so off-putting to their horse, well, there isn't a whole lot I can do or anybody else that's going to change that. So they're going to have to change themselves first. And that's just the way the world works. I don't make the rules,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, and like Joe said, I know most of them are really good people to work with, but at the same time, if you're going to go to the extent of actually making a podcast, you might as well be honest, right? And it's not like everybody's the devil, but it happens. And like I said, I do struggle with that. It's a problem at times. Mm-hmm. Not saying it is right this second, but it certainly comes up. But it feels like, to me, that kind of goes back to the beginning of this podcast when we were talking about like the professionalism in competition sports in the equine industry. That maybe that's part of the relief I like about it. Watching it is that you're like, oh, there's none of this like client expert stuff going on. It's it's like very clear who the expert is. Like, look at his score. Like, look who's on the Jumbotron or whose face is on the side of some casino in Las Vegas. Like, clearly he's better than you. So if, in terms of if you're getting on that scale, proof's in the pudding. And
you got to be able to do stuff, and you got to be able to produce something that's quality. Otherwise, you won't make it. But,
exactly. And so for those folks that are like, if you have a PRCA card or you're in any other organization, there's not a lot of room. I mean, you can be a jerk, right? But there's not a lot of room for like jumping the fence and trying to be where you're not without working hard. But in a way, this is my thought, is that, in the general horse community, if you own a horse, you're like part of the team. You're like, hey, I'm a horseman / horse trainer / groom / owner of a horse. You're very proud of yourself. So in a way, I think, it can be very frustrating to deal with somebody who's doing that to you, but a lot of times it comes from a good place where they just feel that camaraderie of like, hey, I'm a horse owner / trainer / YouTube video watcher, and you're the guy who gets on them when they're more dangerous. So I'm going to do part of the work, and then you'll do the rest of it. And they just don't realize yes, there's a camaraderie amongst horse owners and horse lovers, but when it comes to like studying and pursuing a higher level of horsemanship, you might as well go line up and get your card, and because you're not just like part of the brotherhood, and you're just like too old to ride a horse that bucks. No, you just frankly haven't studied and spent years trying to get better at it. You're just not there's camaraderie in something else, but not in terms of like, but I think it comes from a good place from what I've found, and a little diplomacy and a little talking. And like Joe said, you do a good job. And then a couple weeks later, they go, holy cow.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing a lot more than just being tougher and younger than me. You're putting thought into this. And that is pretty cool. And you're like, hey, and then you can tell them like all the people you've been around. Yeah, exactly. But that's what I found. It's like that. Yeah. That realization that they go, oh yeah. You're not just like cowboying them up or something.
Yeah.
But you're studying this like as if you're going to be a dentist or a plumber or any other profession. So that's a really cool part of the journey. Yeah.
Makes it fun.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah. So what, I know you kind of outlined at the beginning that you're always trying to get better and kind of your goals of, I really like those, 2 goals. You want to feel like you add value where you're at, and you want to be around good people that you're handier than you and you feel like you can learn from. But in terms of, your kind of career, and what you're doing now in Oklahoma, do you have a trajectory? Do you have something you're pursuing, as far as what you're doing with horses, or are you going to kind of stick with Kyle and the 2-year-old thing and see how that progresses? What are your thoughts there right now?
Yeah, no, the long-term plan, I like to start colts. I really enjoy it. I always have. I just get a lot out of it, and I'm gonna keep up with it, and I get a lot out of it. It fits in so many different areas of my riding, just the way things shape up with them horses. It fits to the older horses also. So I'm getting all I need out of all this colt starting. And then I'll have my older horses that I'll keep riding, but I'm definitely going to keep up with just starting colts.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep it to a manageable level. I don't want it to get anything bigger than what I'm doing to a certain point. Because I know the quality's still there. Maybe someday if I find somebody who wants to work with me and start some colts, I'd do that. Maybe partner up. But definitely I'm going to keep riding them, boys. That's where it's at.
Heck yeah. Are you ever even just recreationally? Have you thought about the show pen at all?
Oh, I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Probably, it's just.
Well, I kind of figured.
When in Rome, what do you? It's how it works. I'm sure I'll get something going here. It's just getting one finally bought, and then going through the time it takes to get them there. It'll definitely happen. It just takes time.
Yeah.
Like and the nice thing is you don't have to be super competitive to do it. Like we were talking, I'm not very competitive, but you can just be. You get so much out of it. Have somebody judge what you do. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. Play the game. Do it for good reasons. Don't don't go in there thinking you're the man and then be all disappointed because you're not going to be when you first start out. Just go in there with a good mindset and have fun and try some stuff. And I'm absolutely going to try it. Like I said, it's just going to take a little while to get that horse built up, and when that one's going, I'll have another one going, and it'll go one direction or the other. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, good deal. And this actually reminds me of one other thing I did want to ask you. And I know we're trying to wrap up, but you talked about getting those 2-year-olds in from the sale, and all these different places he's getting colts for you to start. Do you have a hand at all in the horse selection, and what is Kyle kind of looking for? And do you guys talk about that at all in terms of what he looks for in prospects?
Yeah, as far as having a hand in the selection, I don't. But as far as we look at all these horses, and we dissect them down to each one, what they do, how they do it, why it's easier for them, why it's harder for this one, and it turns into a real science. There's so much to it, all these different bloodlines, but they've got to be built right. I like Kyle, he'll pick out some colts, and he'll be excited, and the way they tie their head neck tie in, just how they instinctually operate, things he looks for. We dissect them all, and it's a lot of fun because you get to moving them around, and it just comes to the surface. You're like, ooh, that horse can do that. And it is 100% all natural, and you're going to need it later, and it just fits the program, and it's a lot of fun to see. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm always curious about that, and it does seem like even regardless of discipline, the people that are really good at whatever their specific discipline is, they kind of have a similar formula in picking their colts.
Yeah, form to function. It's a real deal. But some of the coolest things I've learned over working with really handy people is riding what you got and then getting them to perform at their peak level to whatever degree it is. We all can't be Michael Jordan, but we can all play a little basketball, and just shaping things up to best suit that horse to do whatever job you had to do. And it didn't matter if it was a draft cross, big old clunky booger, or some little athletic thing. You're just trying to shape it up to where if they can't do it by showing them this way, well, they can do it still another way, but fairly good. They still can do it. And yeah, I don't know, just with all my ranching background and cowboying, I almost get just as much enjoyment out of riding them big, ranchy kind of horses, and still getting them to operate in a fashion to really be a quality animal, something that you are proud to ride at and do your job. To me, they both the show world, these fancier well-bred colts and them, it's all the same thing. It's just a little puzzle, and it's fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Well, let's go ahead and wrap her up. But I've got to go help a guy hunt some coyotes. He just texted me, so can't keep him hanging. We've been planning it for a couple months, so hate to skip on the podcast, but we did pretty good on this one. I think we did some bonus time even for our little mishap earlier. But hey, Wes, good to meet you, and I really appreciated not only just visiting with you, but learning a couple things from you tonight. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Good to meet you.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun,
I'm
man.
out of beer. I need to go get another beer, so it's perfect time.
Okay. Well, stay on the line, but we're going to stop recording.
All right.